So, Tiger competition, 8 films. In the current setup, 3 years, only 8 films get to go into Tiger competition, each presented on a separate day, so that they are thrust in the limelight of public opinion with filmmakers that have something relevant to say and are daring enough to explore form of cinema to its fullest.
I think for us, for Hivos, it's really an exciting moment again. I mean, like every year, it's always unexpected. It's always a surprise what films you have selected, but they're always quality winners, and they're always on I think, on a theme that is very important at that moment in society, although those films have been made well in advance. So, I mean, there are, I think, filmmakers that exactly feel what's happening in society, whether it's in the Philippines or it's in Korea or it is in Europe. So I'm looking forward to it. It's only 3 weeks from now.
It's in it's in 3 weeks, and that's true. They are exciting. They are pushing, and they somehow manage to capture the spirit of now with either a personal or a larger thematic relevance. And they always use cinema to push the form a little, so you have to be surprised. It's a discovery competition. These filmmakers haven't received much attention yet, so we're putting them on the biggest platform that we can create. Some context to them, and they bring us from all over the globe, actually, from China to the Netherlands to the US to Brazil to Palestine. And they should be thought-provoking as well as entertaining.
Yeah, and I think if I look at the competition this year again, it covers quite a number of countries where Hivos as a development organization is active, and also quite a number of thematic areas, whether it is on migration or it is on the relationship between men and women, the Me Too discussion that we had and the problems we have to solve. But also it touches on things that you better can discuss through film than that you have a straightforward discussion with people that do not agree. Because filmmakers can always go 2 steps further than I can go in discussion with a minister, or that I can go in discussion with groups that think completely differently, sometimes more conservative than the people concerned in the film. And that's for Hivos the reason why we have been supporting filmmakers all over the world, and the Hubert Bals Fund, for example, but also why we are really proud to have our name connected to the Tiger Awards again this year, because it shows how important film and how important culture in general is for changes that we need to reach, the changes that we have to make in society. Men that have to change compared to how they treat and how they relate to women, but also how do we treat big problems like migration or even environment. So for us it's always exciting, and I'm looking forward to it again.
Well, we're very glad to have you again, and boy, are you in for a big surprise with those 8 films. Let me run by them real quick. We start off with a film called Djon África, which is a film that follows a Portuguese man when he travels back to Cape Verde, where he's not accepted as a Cape Verdean, where in Portugal he's obviously not considered to be a Portuguese. So he's trying to figure out where to fit in, as we all do, but in a very frolic and entertaining way, yet very personal at the same time. Djon África. Another one is the Korean one that you mentioned, I Have a Date with Spring, which plays with the element of the last day on Earth. What would you do? What is your biggest fear or your biggest wish? Which always becomes something very personal, but a very expressive and playful form as well. From Brazil, we have a film called Sultry, Marmaçal, which deals with the background of the Rio Olympics, which guess who pays the price for? The people that live in the buildings that need to go away, and literally the mold enters the building and the personas that live in it. We have a beautiful film from the Philippines which tries to show us what looking at the world really means. Let's start all over with how we view the world. We try to understand what it is, but it takes a child's eye and a child's ear to really start over in this beautifully stylized film. You mentioned the gender roles. Well, there's one that really puts the gender roles and twists it upside down, not one, but I think like 3 times. It's called Piercing, starring Mia Wasikowska, which is a very intriguing and again stylized, genre-bending film that will not leave you unmoved, I'm sure. Speaking of how we view the world, Possessed by Meta Haven and Rob Schreuder. Now that is an experiment of form altogether. That really takes the way that people that have grown up and are instilled with how social media work view the world. It's different from the way we've related to it before. It's different from the way we were brought up. But it says everything of how we try to change the world through image, which is what we try to do with the whole competition, basically. From Palestine, we have a film that I'm very happy that we have, because it's one we supported with the Hubert Bals Fund that also Hivos is supporting, and that we even gave another boost through Boost NL, our collaboration with Utrecht, in which a love affair between a Palestinian man and a Jewish woman becomes political, as virtually everything in that region does. And as it's still under the microscope of public opinion and actually world affairs, it deals with our personal lives, in this case, just a man and a woman. From China, there's a film which also deals with female power, or in this case, alleged power, because a widow is assumed to be a witch, but she uses that power given to her by the superstitious villagers to actually become the shaman of the village and try to become more empowered. But of course, she's still put into a corner. All those films, though, have something which I think is very similar to what you guys are trying to achieve, which is to rattle our conscience, which is to rattle the way we view the world. They take one step further in form, they take one step further in story. They always make you stand back, stand to the side, and look at the world anew. Whether it's through a child, or whether it's through a female point of view, or a totally experimental point of view. But by looking at the world in a different way, through cinema, maybe something can happen.
Well, let's hope so. And I believe what we try to do is indeed to step away from what you could say, how development and development aid was conceived and how we did it. And we had great, I think, successes over the past 50 years, but we're not solving the really sticky problems in the world. And I think if I look at Djon África, from Portugal, going back to his roots and not really finding what he is expecting there, and being in between realities, but not being home at Portugal where he lives and going back to his home country. I mean, it is something that we see in the wider world. We see enormous migration in the world, and we see in Europe we try to stop it, but we suppose that people can return and go back and just pick up their lives and live forever happy, but that's not the case. And I think looking at it from that side gives you another idea on where would the solution be. And that solution often is not in Africa or in Asia or in Latin America, like in Rio de Janeiro, where inequality is so big. The solution often lies with ourselves and how we view the world and what we do to the world. Because I think it was the Korean one, that the film on the last day of your life. I mean, we're messing up this earth in such a way, economically, socially, how we relate to each other, that we're now putting more money and energy in trying to colonize Mars to start all over again instead of trying to fix this earth. And I think that's exactly what filmmakers also do. They give us a mirror, like, okay, look into it, and this is what you do. So really realize that you can also change that. And I think that's why film is such a powerful instrument and tool, because you're sitting there, you're watching that big screen, and while you're watching, you're thinking, okay, what's my position here? What's my opinion? What can I do? And I think that's, besides that, it's always fun to go to the film. That's the powerful part of it, and that's why I like it.
Yeah, nice. Power of cinema. Yeah. I would even say that the lineup of the 8 films, through their thematics and how they present the humans of planet IFFR, it's our tentpole competition. It's our biggest, most prestigious competition. But the themes and ways that have been discussed through those 8 films can be found all over the festival. Whether it's about empowerment, whether it's about personal stories, whether it's about our personal place in the world, or how we should change it, or how we should relate to one another. And this is the power of cinema, because for an hour and a half or so, you are sitting in the dark with people you may or may not know, and you can, if you open your heart, all of a sudden things can change in a way that only cinema can. And these are 8 examples of how to do so.
Great.